was young.
When I'm talking. Oh, I would be happy to see that. Pen, pencil? I'll take one piece of paper.
Do you have, you want one piece?
We don't need great details.
No.
Just really votes
At the Selectmen's meeting room in Town Hall. Okay, meeting will come to order. First item on the agenda is Matt Weeks. Discussion of his research on the Falmouth shellfish hatchery. And for those of you who have not met Matt Weeks, you haven't spent your time on the town docks and in the town shellfish areas, because that's where he spends all of his time. Until lately.
Lately, I've been in the library.
Lately, he's too cold for the shellfish areas in the docks, so he's at the library. And we sent this around a few days ago, but he has come up with the most amazing information about shellfish in Falmouth, going back to
1773.
1773. And I thought this was something that
Further back than I.
we ought to share with the committee and with our nationwide television audience. So, Matt, you're on.
Yeah, thanks for the interest and thanks for having me. And I should thank the Historical Society who let me go through their documents, especially Meg, who gave me her. She basically just put the documents right in front of me, and all I had to do was read them. It was pretty nice. And she lent me her expertise in translating some of the handwriting and her experience with history in Falmouth. And also the public library reference librarians who helped me remember how to use microfiche and how to orient myself with those.
They still have
machines.
microfiche.
Yeah. It's been, I think it's been since high school since I was doing. And Bill at the Enterprise, who had let me go through his archives a couple of years ago. And a lot of those have been digitized now. And also to Greg and Chuck for letting me run with this and not making me go out in the weather. So, can y'all see this okay? Should I turn that light off?
Yeah, we can do the lights.
Yeah, just hit most of those buttons.
There we go, that's better.
What am I doing?
Keep going.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it. Good.
Yeah, so this has been something that's been an interest of mine since I've been growing shellfish in Falmouth. And I've kind of been doing it casually over the years, and this winter I needed something to do inside.
Right.
So I figured I'd take this up again. And so these are the information sources I've gone through so far. The annual shellfish officer reports were reported each year since 1936 in the town reports. Those have been digitized from 1936 to, or actually earlier than that, up to 1962. I've gone through 1936, which is the first shellfish officer when he was first instated, up to now. And I've compiled all those into one document. And we've gone through the town meeting records. I haven't gone through all of them because it's impossible to read all of them. But I've gone through where I knew there were shellfish references. And there might be more out there, but this is, as of now, is all I can find. We've gone through the selectmen's ledgers, which are not, weren't organized very well, and some are missing and some aren't. And but I went through everything that they had at the Historical Society, basically. And I've gone through a lot of the archives for the Enterprise. There's a lot of information in there. A lot of it's very illuminating. It goes into some detail of projects that were done in the past and personalities that were involved. And some of those have been digitized, available on the websites too, up to 1962 as well. And then I've gone through some of the hard copies that they have at the Enterprise up to present. And something I haven't done yet that I would like to is to go through the state's landing data, do a data request from Division of Marine Fisheries. That might be a project for next winter. Also, there's state reports, especially a big one in 1909 done by David Belding, which is a very well respected report, very detailed. And I've also gone through a lot of aerial photographs and a lot of different various documents, tax reports, and random books I find. And of course, I'm always getting incidental information from people on the dock, which is it's very illuminating as well. So I guess today, I'm just going to do a show and tell. I'm not a historian, and I haven't really had the time to digest all this into a useful document yet. So maybe get some feedback from you and what you would be interested in seeing me extract from these data sources, what would be useful for you, and maybe get some input from your experience in town as well, and possibly some corrections to my misinterpretations. I don't want to get into too much, details of the history because I don't really get involved in speculation and all this stuff, but I just want to put out what's available out there, maybe some feedback from you. So one of the earlier references I found, this is from a book from 1812 from Jenkins. He mentioned in it, he had gone through the town meeting records and had mentioned problems they were having in an oyster pond, with the oysters dying in 1773. And this was also mentioned again in Clark's book, 1886. And so I read these and I was like, wow, it wasn't very illuminating, but it's very intriguing. So I went to the original records. These are the ones that are on microfiche in the town library. And Meg pointed me to this and looked these up for me. And there is a lot of references to Oyster Pond in there. And a lot of these, what these are is they were assigning people to keep the mouth open of the pond. So a lot of these are just charging somebody to do this, go open the pond up, which they did pretty much every year from 1773 on, it seems like. And they were having problems with the oysters dying in there. They formed a committee to try to look into it, and then the war happened, and that team probably got distracted.
Yeah.
Things that are more important. So instead of make a report back to the committee on what was going on, I couldn't find what they made a report back, but they didn't give any details of what was in the report. But then they charged somebody to go open up the mouth again. So it could have been freshwater intrusion. It could have been a disease, overfishing, the usual suspects, I guess. And then you can see, like here, I like this one because it said charge Samuel Weeks to open the mouth of oyster pond.
20 ancestors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1774, same thing, they met in April 1794 to receive the report of the committee for the Oyster River. Chose that shipwreck.
Sam Adams.
Yeah, that's the thing, that's why I left that up there. Oysters and Sam Adams seem to have always gone together. So they voted for Sam Adams to be governor, and then they took up this issue of the oysters, which is fascinating. And so they voted to vendue the oysters for 5 years, which turns out to mean auction the oysters.
Voted
So
to
auction the rights of the oysters.
vendor.
Oh,
The oysters.
the rights to collect oysters or rights to...
Well, then I did find more details in this report, 1779, and this goes into what they, I think, were doing. They voted to hear the report of this is a translation in case you can't read it up there, transcription. Voted to hear the report of the committee for the oyster pond and river, accepted the same, which is as follows: that the town give proprietors of the oyster pond and land that encloses the same on consideration they keep said river open so long as it's just judged sufficient to make oysters, and that said proprietors agree to take and supply any inhabitant with oysters at 3 shillings per bushel when cold, where the inhabitants have the privilege at the same time to take any other fish that said pond may be supplied with, and that the committee chosen shall be judges whether there is sufficient river kept open in order to make and support said shellfish. Which I thought was fascinating. So basically, this is like one of the they're privatizing it. They were, instead of having to pay somebody to go out and open up the mouths all the time, they just basically privatized it. So it's been like one of the first grants,
Yes.
shellfish grants in
Like a grant, yeah.
maybe the country.
And set the price for per bushel.
Yeah.
From my experience working in former British colonies, there's sort of a tax that they say for a lease fee that the locals would have to pay to the British, whatever, this is in South Asia. And they basically owned everything, and so you'd have to pay, but this is obviously after that. So now maybe that same system has been shifted
Yeah.
to, which is what's happened in these other countries. That people pay the government of Bangladesh for use of water.
Yeah, that's, back at the same time, I was putting out a lot of records on herring, which is a whole other thing, going to another winter. But they were auctioning off the herring rights as well each year, so it's probably the same kind of setup.
Is the river you're talking about, is that at the entrance? The
Yeah,
river should
Trump
be
River,
Yeah.
what we would call Trump River today, yeah. And as we know now, there's no oysters in Oyster Pond.
No.
But the pond next to it, Salt Pond, has probably the highest population of oysters. A lot of oysters in it, yeah.
This year.
And so it was a subset, they were sustaining themselves in these oysters probably. It was,
So if the Conservation Commission gets word of your presentation, maybe some changes ahead, right? To return.
So Oyster Pond was well named at the time. And,
Yeah.
and why do you think the oysters don't grow there now?
it's pretty much fresh.
It's too fresh,
Yeah.
which would indicate that it was more blocked than it used to be.
Well, we now know that we have a dike
Weir.
there.
The
Weir.
The weir,
Yeah.
I see, okay.
Yeah, the railroad probably.
Yeah.
The railroad.
The railroad,
The
I'm sure
railroad.
the railroad
That's-
also.
Yes, because that came through in 1875.
75, 76.
Was it 70? Okay,
Somewhere around there.
yeah, I thought it was early 80s, but anyway. Okay, that makes sense.
And there might have been, herring was also important to them in that river as well.
Yeah.
So maybe they started managing it for herring more instead of oysters.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, and then after that, there wasn't as many references, but there was the Falmouth Fish Committee, which I haven't found much more about just yet, but I'd like to look into that. 1804.
And there's no indication in the early history that there were oyster reefs like there were in Wellfleet, where they had actual big reefs.
Well, they were beds. They called them oyster beds. So it's a little different. It's like, it's not a tall three-dimensional structure. It was flat.
Just one layer on,
Yeah,
rather than an actual reef.
yeah, and there are mentions of that. I'll get to that later, but Belding goes into that a little bit. And a lot of it's still speculation. None of it's recorded. But, and then they started enacting laws for overfishing around 1795, and found an early bylaw, shellfish bylaws, that should date between 1810 and 1840. This was in the Tovey collection. And it basically was empowering people in the town to regulate the fishery, as in if they saw somebody from out of town boat taking some of Falmouth shellfish, they could hold that boat and report them, and they would be fined. I should have translated this well, but it was basically $2 for every bushel of oysters, and
Yes.
$1 for every other bushel of
Yes.
shellfish.
in the middle of,
And they gave rights to the Indians to dig as they needed. And it goes into details on who gets the money from the fines. Half goes to the town, I think half goes to whoever catches them. But I should transcribe this, I can send this to you. Yeah, $2 for every bushel of oysters and $1 for other shellfish, it says.
How would that compare with today?
$1 back then, as you know,
Yeah,
it's pretty substantial, yeah, $2. And then this fascinating document that Meg gave me has a list of licenses starting in 1852, oyster licenses. The first one, it says near Katamet Harbor, which we know is not in Falmouth, so it's probably Meganzet,
Yeah.
the river in the inner part of Meganzet there, which makes sense. It is a prime area to grow oysters. Near Hope Spring, along that area.
Any on the south coast?
And yep, so there was most of them were in the south coast. There was one in Bald Harbor, a couple in West Falmouth Harbor, one in Quistit, and then the rest of them, I think I found up over 100 total,
Wow.
who are in the South Ponds.
Huh.
Yeah, so these are all the different record books I went through. And so I went through and I transcribed all of them, which was challenging, and
Wow.
it was a good thing to do on snowy days, which,
Yeah.
it was illuminating. And then, I mean, sometimes they numbered them, and sometimes they started over numbering them, so it gets very confusing. But it seems like around the late 1800s, they started getting more formal about it and writing the actual descriptions and what the conditions are for that license.
How many years would they license them for at a time?
Usually it was 10 years.
10 years?
And they had 2 years to actually do something with it. And if they didn't do anything with it in 2 years, it was void.
Okay.
And it was assigned to their heirs and assigners.
It's mostly oysters.
It was all oysters.
All
back then.
oysters.
All oysters.
Yeah.
All oysters? So this was a big oyster place then, in those days?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Katuitt was booming around the same time, oyster grants, in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Do you get any idea of yields and how many bushels they were taking out?
That's really would be interesting, and I found some things that are alluding to what's seeded. I'll show you that in a second, but I haven't found anything like what's actually produced out of it.
They were
Some
already
of these
seeding
things-
oysters? They were already seeding oysters at that time?
Yeah, we'll get into how they were doing that in a second, but yeah, they were bringing in oysters from out of town.
Oh,
and seeding
okay.
them inside of Falmouth. So, yeah, this is a list. I don't know if y'all got this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
We
sent
did
around
get
as a
that,
document.
Yeah.
It was basically, it transcribed all those grants to one table. And kind of where the boundaries are. When they describe the boundaries, they say from the oak tree with 3 marks on it to the stick in the marsh over here. One of them said, from my chicken house to... So, but you can kind of get an idea. The names mostly matched up to what we use nowadays. There's a few ones that have changed. It was interesting, like Greens Pond, there were a lot in Greens Pond, but they were based around property lines mostly. So I think maybe it was more developed along there, and it was people who were wanting to do it on, their property. And a lot of these names are, very familiar. They probably had money to do this kind of stuff.
I live in Mr. Finney's house in Wacoit.
You did or you do?
I do.
You
Yes.
do?
I own the
Yeah,
house.
he officially had grant number 1.
Wow.
They were the one once they started numbering them, it was grant number 1. They didn't number them from 1852 until the late 1800s. And so the first one was probably up around Kansas somewhere, Warren's Pond, Caleb's Pond, and Salt Pond. Green Pond had some. Majority were in the Wacoit Bay, and Seabed River being the really hot spot. I think Seabed River might have had several grants in it that were consolidated at some point. Eel Pond, Charles River, and FC Davis shows up a lot. He seemed to have done a land grab there at some point. He went around and grabbed a bunch of them. He seemed to be pretty big in the business.
Was he the one that has that letter in that 1881
Yeah.
U.S. Fisheries document that said the green pond was covered with
Oh,
the
I don't recall.
blue-black muck?
Yeah.
And there were virtually no oysters in Green Pond. He didn't reference any other ponds. but-
Maybe he was just making it up, but so no one would go look.
Well, there are no grants listed for...
Yeah,
for,
there's only
for-
one green pond.
Oh, there were several.
Oh, there are
There were several more pages here.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, no oysters here.
Yeah. There was,
Look at all of them in
Yeah.
Wacoit.
and there was one even in Eel Pond Woods Hole
Mhm.
that Fay had.
Uh,
And it looked like he was supposed to be doing some collaborative research with the U.S. Fisheries Fish Commission there with that. There was one in Little Harbor. It was surprising.
Harry Davis, I'll be darned.
It would look like almost with all these grants that it was very difficult for individuals to go out to shellfish, or did they make exceptions? Did they have areas for people to go out and get shellfish to eat, or eels, or anything?
Well, I mean, you think about the waterfront at the time, it was such a working waterfront all along the salt works and the the mills and the fish weirs and the shipbuilding and everything. It was a completely different mindset, but I think that there was still enough out there for people to do subsistence fishing.
Subsistence, that's right.
Yeah.
Even Israel's Cove, Israel's Cove is in Boardtown.
Yeah, so I mean, if they're bringing in, thousands of oysters into each one of these ponds, they must have, been impacting the ecosystem in a big way, I would think. And they're dumping them out there and dredging them up, and millions of oysters possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you get a chance, go through this, and it's interesting to see.
Yeah.
And then later on, they start having grants applied for in the Sound and in Buzzards Bay. And I don't know if it's because they ran out of space in the ponds, or people wanted more, like bigger grants. Didier had one. I think he was a harbor master at one point too. He also had a bunch of fish weirs.
So Luscombe had all of Little Harbor. in
Yeah.
that point. Entire harbor.
At the bottom of it, you have not sure yet for
He and
contaminated
Gifford were
quahog.
partners together.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's go make Gifford.
Yeah. You have a series in the late 1940s for not sure yet for
Yeah,
contaminated
those so
quahog.
in the 40s and 50s, they were quahogs, and they were taking the contaminated relay quahogs and planting them in grants and decorating.
Where were they coming from?
They are relayed from, at that time, mostly New Bedford Harbor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the Olin Kelly grant. was one of
Olin
them.
Kelly starts in
Kelly had done
37.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he had a grant in Lawrence Pond as well.
Right.
Before he had some bit.
Well, that's good to know.
That's interesting.
We should know exactly where.
Yeah, I mean, I have the descriptions. Sometimes they have, like one of the first ones said freshwater hole. And the descriptions are hard to tell exactly where.
Israel's Cove.
Seepit River, Charles Burgess, yes, okay.
Well, it's reassuring to know that
Fred Lawrence.
the whole town, even though it was scattered and there was some concentrations, it appears that throughout the town on both coasts, there were oyster grants.
Collins, Jones,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, and I have the originals, photographs of all the originals. You can look at them.
Very nice.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, some of these were transferred around and merged with other ones at different points.
How many grants are there
More.
today?
There's the Seepit River grant, is the only one inside the estuaries.
The only one that's in
And
Falmouth at the moment?
it's one that's been around since the 1800s.
Well, it's Olin Kelly's.
Olin Kelly.
Kelly's,
Yeah, but Kelly and Burgess had it before him, and Davis had it before him, and it's been passed
Oh, I
down,
see.
yeah,
Okay.
continuously.
Captain Hinckley, James Hinckley,
Yeah, Hinckley-
Moonicus River, how's it
Yeah,
going?
and Hinckley was also involved. Hinckley's, I saw that name in there a lot, and it's funny, there was a Hinckley that they charged back in the 1700s to go down to the mill and on the Coonamessett River to make sure the herring were getting through. And we still have a Hinckley that works for us, the same ancestor.
I'll be darned.
Where he works on clearing the herring runs for us.
Yeah.
You still see a lot of you see a lot of the names of some of the old oyster scallop licenses, or Mendoza and Souza and Silva, and all
sure.
these names are still involved in the shellfish.
I think that Captain Hinckley was probably the one that my father knew when he was a kid, when he was,
Oh, yeah?
old guy, he was an old guy around the,
Huh.
and that's in Moonicus River they
Yeah,
had
you
it,
have the Moonicus.
down below the bridge,
Yeah.
below the bridge to high water of White Bay.
There's a hatch too.
And they're saying now that you can't grow any quahogs at all there, any quahogs or clams or
So you can't harvest anything
Can't.
out of there.
and what's his name in Mashpee is saying you couldn't grow any clams any oysters in there
I'll never try to.
because of the mud. I just
Yeah.
yeah.
Alright.
Yes, see
Yeah,
that.
so I mean, if there's another way you would like this presented, or you'd like to see the originals, let me know. And I can,
Oh, this is great.
Could you map it?
Yeah, that's why I was gonna start, I started trying to do that, and be really vague lines based on their
Yeah.
descriptions.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to calculate acreage and stuff, and I was like, well, that's not gonna be
Right.
possible. But you can kind of get I can kind of get you know, it says like to the center of Warren's Pond, you know, westerly side. That's about as far as I could get, as far as the detail.
What would be the latest date on which you say that lots of oysters were being grown and harvested in Falmouth, in various parts of Falmouth?
What does it say
The
there?
latest day, the latest year. And
Well,
not many, until recently, not many have been,
right, we'll get to that.
all right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, this ground, I was gonna ask for your input on this one. It was in West Falmouth. It was a pond, it just says a pond by his house. It was 150 feet by 200 feet.
Well, there is an oyster pond in
Yeah,
West
there is a little
Falmouth,
oyster
Yeah,
even though
that's
it's
the
very
first one.
fresh.
Right next
And,
to the
and
river.
again, it's very close to the,
Yeah.
to the railroad.
Yeah, that's the first place I thought of, but that pond is like 600 feet.
Oh.
Unless the marsh is receded or something. It seems like a smaller pond than that, but maybe it's,
Did we open that? I mean, I thought there's a drainage in and out from West Falmouth Harbor to Oyster Pond.
yeah, it goes under the bike trail.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, it's sort of a culvert.
Yeah,
But when they
it's-
put the railroad through,
Yeah,
they
it's-
could obviously have
Yeah, it definitely changed.
changed it, yeah.
And there's still a
the
few
size of it.
shellfish, maybe I shouldn't say this, but there's still, I found clogs and oysters right there at the mouth of it, where there's a lot of flow. There's still, even some eelgrass right there.
Right.
Huh.
But, yeah, so I don't know where this pond
Yeah.
is in West Falmouth.
Oyster Grant in West Falmouth. Pretty small.
Yeah,
It
second
says
one, sorry.
surrounded by a
First.
marsh.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's the,
At the end of, what is it, Brick Kiln Road, or?
Could it be just a depression, a great Sipuous marsh or something?
The other thing is to look at where Edward Thompson owned land.
yeah. that
In,
would be the-
in what year is this going to be?
1911.
1911.
Could be a pond that's been filled in with marsh since then?
I went on and I tried to measure those dimensions on the ponds around there, and the only one that fit around that was the one, there's a little one up by Chappie Island
Yeah.
in there. I mean, it's not very well flushed, but maybe back then it was. But maybe a lot of these farms could have been like gentleman farms. People just had it there by their house and decided to make a claim for it. Maybe they did something with it they didn't. I don't know. This was an intriguing letter that was in there from Nancy Davis, again, that guy that was on a lot of these grants. And it's a letter to the selectman requesting renewal of his license. And he was saying that he was basically the person to get a renewal. And how do you go about getting it? And he claims that there was no natural quahogs in the Seaford River because of the high flow rate. There's nothing that's set in there. And he was inviting him down to come look at it. And in there, he says he needs to know because he was going to seed, I think it was 3,000 bushels of oysters. And he needed to know beforehand before he seeded them. So maybe that gives you a little glimpse of how much they were moving in, literally like boatloads of them.
Love the envelope.
His
He
little-
even has the
yeah.
oyster.
Yeah, so he's got a nice,
Yes.
nice envelope.
Sure,
yeah.
yes,
Choice
he's clearly
oysters.
in the business.
Yeah, this is 1895.
Choice oysters.
Isn't that something?
It really is.
And I think this is his original license.
Yeah.
It's like describing the grant, yeah,
77.
its conditions. And this is what I had to look at.
Yeah,
Interpret. Yeah, you got, after a while, your eyes kind of get adjusted to
Yeah.
to the handwriting.
what they're saying, yeah.
1877?
Yeah. This is for the grant in the Seaford River.
Nice.
It's fascinating reading the old minutes. I don't know if you remember when we looked up the streetlights.
I don't remember, except that we did.
We wanted to get this thing through to see if we could get the town to purchase the streetlights. So I went back and looked it up, and they owned the streetlights back in around the turn of the century, 1900, and they had the stipulation of paying for the electricity, but turning them off when it was a full moon.
Yes. That's right.
So they would turn them off every time there's a full moon, cloudless night.
Save a few
Save
dollars.
Save a
money.
few dollars.
Wow.
Yeah?
First scallop permits.
Yeah, these are some of the first scallop permits in there, late 1800s, early 1900s. Again, this is what I was saying, some of the same names.
Right.
Where they were
Weeks,
quite Bay?
Were these in Wacoit or where?
No, it was just, it didn't have a specific location, but it said like starting at 1 a.m. on Sunday night until, 1 a.m. to that following Saturday night or something, you have to fish.
Huh.
That was basically the permit.
There's another week's.
So it was permission to fish rather than a particular area.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one of the first just general shellfish in the 20s. Which I only find one, there must have been more out there.
Yeah, shellfish was.
1929.
And there were fish weirs. There was a permit to put a herring house in a little pond,
Really?
which is funny. Yeah.
They're well preserved, some of these records.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's it's hard to imagine a herring running a little pond now. There was white perch and herring going in there.
I think it's all underground now, those rivers. Under roads.
And this is, you're asking about the seed. So back then, what they would do is they would get seed from, a lot of them came from the Wareham area, the head of Buzzards Bay. And later on, they started getting it from Connecticut, Long Island, and going even further south to maybe Chesapeake. And they would dredge up seed, bring them up here, and plant them on their grants, literally by the boatload.
Look at that.
So they were pretty good sized seed.
Look at that.
Well, a lot of those are set on shell,
Uh-huh.
so they look bigger than they are.
Oh, okay.
It's basically what we would call remote set now.
Okay.
Huh.
Okay.
But what happened was, in Buzzards Bay, the canal was dug, and that changed everything up there, pretty much wiped it out. And that's probably one of the reasons why we saw a decline in the industry later on. They lost their seed source, and moving all the seed around probably introduced a lot of disease, especially from down south.
Yeah.
And we'll see in a second, there were lawsuits filed by the oystermen of Buzzards Bay against the canal company for basically smothering their oyster beds with sediment as they were dredging.
Huh.
By what mechanism did the canal destroy the?
Well, the act of doing it probably, actually dredging all the sediment being moved, and it changed the whole ecosystem up there. It probably used to be more of a brackish, ecosystem. Now it's
Back up at the end of Boca.
yeah,
At the end.
It was originally two rivers
Ah,
that
okay.
flowed actually
Yeah.
in two different
Yeah,
directions.
two different,
And they kind of connected them up and made them
Okay.
a channel.
yeah.
right.
So that changed the whole ecosystem there, which impacted the fishery here, the grants here.
Neat.
Yeah, so these are some clippings from the Enterprise regarding about boats coming in to seed for the grants. And one of them says 1,700 bushels of oysters.
Upper right says 4,500
Yeah,
bushels.
so they're
Planted
moving
in
a lot of
Vineyard
seed around.
Sound.
Off Falmouth Shore.
Yeah.
Time will tell whether oysters can be successfully cultivated in these waters.
Sounds familiar?
Yes.
That was when they were growing them in the Sound.
Yeah.
They started growing. There was a company, I'll get to in a second, called the Falmouth Oyster Company that came in right at the wrong time. They started up and they put a lot of money into it, and they came in right after that, the industry crashed.
They own the land where Davis Marine Park is now.
Yeah, I've got a picture of it. Yeah. So, it was a big business.
I like the last sentence in the second column. There are many thousands of acres, Dr. Valtsoff discovers, of formerly productive bottoms along Cape Cod, now practically depleted.
Yeah.
Significant.
I think, one of the things we lose sight of is that these coastal ponds have been filling in since colonial times. I mean, Wellfleet Harbor, they've moved the town of Wellfleet once
Yep.
because the harbor filled in naturally. And in my lifetime, just watching Wellfleet Harbor, it's silted in dramatically in my 70 years. So that, we're all worried about these changes, but it's, a lot of it's a natural process.
Is that due to storms, John, or?
I think it's just naturally silting in, yeah, and storms and leaf litter and stuff washes in and decomposes, but I think that a lot of it's a very natural process.
Could it have been accelerated because
I'm
of
sure,
farming?
I'm sure we've accelerated it like mad, but in a place like Wellfleet, you know, those were all deep water harbors. And they had to abandon all that. Bound Brook, the whole town of Wellfleet was on Bound Brook Island, and it got barged off and
That's
moved to its present location because Bound Brook Harbor filled in.
Yeah, so this was a latecomer, and the Falmouth Oyster Company started in 1916. They put a lot of money into it. They had a big grant out in the Sound, and they also had a grant inside Falmouth Harbor itself. And they, like Eric was saying, they own property on Falmouth Harbor. It's called the Harbor Masters Park there. There's a picture of it where you can see the oyster shell, the white, is where the operation was. You can see a boat pulled up next to it. This is from 1950, so it was already shut down. They stopped, I think, in 26.
And across the street, you see Veterans Housing,
Yeah.
Yes,
which
yes.
was built after the war, and probably tore it down 3 years later, but they had to find a place to put all those
You can
veterans.
still see the creek that goes up, is now underground.
Yes.
There was a herring run there too. And so it has the list of the citizens involved, and it seemed to be a big deal at the time. They had 4,500 bushels they brought in seed, and then it collapsed a few years right after they got started. Oysters used to be scarce. Article on the left describes what the lack of oyster seed in 1916. And this is some articles regarding the canal and the impact on the oyster industry in Buzzards Bay, and the seed, and the litigation that won in the Supreme Court regarding it.
Oh, yeah.
We're putting damages up there.
And then on the last paragraph on the upper, or on the upper right-hand corner, it says Captain Benjamin Berry Company of Falmouth is one of the largest oyster growers in Buzzards Bay. And I haven't found that name anywhere.
Yeah,
So he might have had a grant in Wareham or Bourne or something, some other place.
right.
And then the Belden reports, I'm not sure if y'all looked at these, but there's a lot of information in here. And he goes into the history, he breaks it down, the fishery,
Are these the ones you brought in, Ron, from the 1880s?
1909.
What? That report you brought in from 1880, was that building?
I don't remember. It was the National Marine Fisheries Report.
Oh,
This was a state report.
okay.
Oh.
Yeah, this is, he did this for the state. And he breaks down into each of the different time periods. He's got some data in there on landings as well, a table. The increase in landings from 1879, 36,000 bushels up to 161,000. This is in the whole state. And he goes into the legislation, critiques the legislation stuff. It's interesting as well. And these are some more updated information from 1900 to 2000 for each of the different species. You can see the drop off in oysters from 1999 to 3000.
Look at the drop off in scallops.
Yeah, scallops were sporadic and then just crash. Cool hogs went up and mostly stayed up. Clams have gone down.
Wow.
This is for every 25 years.
Yeah.
And this is interesting to read through his critiques of the legislation back then. And I've got all these reports if you'd like to look at it. he went into Falmouth, he was charged with going around to the state and assessing each town, what was in each town. And this is where he alludes to once a large amount of oysters being in the town.
So his opinion is that Buzzards Bay is the natural set area.
Yeah, so that's what they were going to get. He's referring to getting the seed at the head of the bay.
Okay.
So they do, they go and they dump shell there, and they come back and get it in a culch, and they go to and put it on the bottom, allow the seed to set, and then come back and dredge it up and move it to their grant.
But that's pre-canal?
Yeah, this is 1909.
Right.
Canal was 1915.
15.
Yeah. And then shortly after this, Falmouth also started doing contaminated relays. We were the first town to do it in the state in 1911 as well. Before that, he said that there weren't any cohogs here relative to the other towns nearby. And then, like I said, in 1911, we started doing the relay, and our cohog landings went way up.
So Wacoit Bay didn't have, until they started bringing in cohogs, didn't have a whole lot of cohogs then? Or not?
He says he says McCoy Bay is one
Did
of
have
the more
some.
productive areas in town, which is, of course it still is. And in the mouths of ponds weren't being managed at the time either. So like if you look at the old photographs of Green Pond and whatnot, they were closed up more, so they may not have been as productive.
All those ponds closed up, all right?
At times.
At times, yeah.
Some of them had enough groundwater flow that they stayed open.
Yeah, great.
Well, I meant closing, not necessarily including.
Oh.
And then I've gone through the shellfish officer reports and I've consolidated them into one document so you can kind of look at it each year. And it's really interesting to see what they've tried, a lot of the stuff we're trying to do now, and tried and failed at, and trying to build up some institutional knowledge here of what's been done in town before, what works, what doesn't work.
That's great.
And that George Souza was really good about his, he had the most detailed reports, and he did a lot of surveys and landing data, and I'd like to go back and maybe put that in a spreadsheet and analyze that some. But these are worth reading through if I can get the time to read them. They talk about their trials and tribulations of growing oysters, just like we do now, and where they planted what, where they got the contaminated relays from, how many they seeded. Author Corey was also a good warden. He did a lot of innovative stuff for the time. There's a picture of them digging in the harbor. I think that's probably off the Deacon's Ave there,
Yes.
looking towards the heights,
Yeah.
And of course, George's reports. And then the Enterprise articles, there's George there. I wish I could have met him.
Oh,
did a
You
lot
would
of
love to.
stuff.
he was a wonderful
Yeah,
man,
great guy.
Yeah,
and he full of life, as you can see. There.
yeah. And so the Enterprise, it talks about they tried to control the oyster drills by using this pesticide called polystream. They spread over Cohog Pond in West Falmouth.
No.
And it worked. It killed the drills and it killed everything else in the pond. It was interesting to see all the things that they tried back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Arnie Carr, he's still around too.
Is he still around?
Arnie, yeah. That's a picture of him out there in the water.
Wow.
And the Enterprise also used to publish the shellfish regulations, which is interesting to see how those changed over time.
Nickerson.
Yeah. And these are some of the earlier articles about how the fisheries were managed. The Rod and Gun Club, I think, was instrumental in getting the constable position created back in the day. They saw the resource being depleted. They lobbied town meeting to create the position in 36. Let's go to the video real quick. So I'm just giving you a taste of what's out there. If you want more information, there's lots of scientific talks. And then they talk about a lot of grants that people proposed that never happened. You know, which is ironic, because one on the left is where the grants are now today, Buzzards Bay, Gunning Point, and Office of Wilson Marsh. They were proposing to put grants in the same spot back then. These are some of George's articles.
Yes. It was one of his campaigns, don't
Yeah.
feed the wildfowl.
Yeah, he talked about that a lot. You can find out when the ponds were closed and why they
Oh,
were closed, which
89.
is interesting. I like to put that all in a timeline. Eel Pond, Woods Hole was the first one to be
That would be
closed, back in like the early 1900s. And but they did a lot of contaminated relays out of Little Pond. It's amazing how many coal logs they pulled out of there. They pulled 1,200 bushels out in 2 days.
Little Pond?
Yeah, or I'm sorry, Eel Pond.
Eel Pond,
Eel
yeah,
Pond,
yeah.
They would do contaminated relays out of the harbor and out of Eel Pond, Woods Hole.
Yep.
Were you using coliform bacteria when you said they were doing contaminated relays?
Yeah.
I'm not sure when the bacterial test even started being considered.
I don't know, but Eel Pond was a sewer not too long
So
ago.
it's just public health concerns, clean them up, we don't
Right.
know why, but clean them up.
Clean them up and move them on, yeah.
But the Board of Health, I think, started having a say in it in the early 1900s on which shellfish areas would be open.
So Matt, originally there were very few quahogs in Falmouth waters?
According to Belding, at that time, I mean, that's just one data point, 1909. So maybe
Yeah,
before.
That top paragraph in the middle column is kind of interesting because he says he went out searching for discharge pipes going into the pond, couldn't find any. But it's a groundwater seepage, it's probably coming in that wouldn't be by pipe, which is what we
Right.
found to be the,
And also cesspools that are right down in the groundwater.
right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of old articles there.
Which little
I thought
pond
this
do you
was
think that was? The little pond that we know of now?
Yeah,
So,
this was
that's
a,
not densely developed either.
There was no
It
wall,
ain't
there was no
1989.
wall upstream, I mean, there's a lot of differences.
yeah, it used to be a cranberry bog.
Yeah.
Chopped
But this
sirloin,
is
very good, sure.
89.
Oh, exactly.
It used to be.
And the
I
mall
was
read it
there
used
in
to be pretty much
89.
a freshwater pond.
Well, let's see, when did the mall,
I was there in
89 is when they closed it,
The mall was there in 89.
and that's when they closed it.
Yes,
So the mall
yes.
was there before and contributed to the reason to close it.
Yeah.
I read a lot of debate.
Oysters,
back in the
Woods
day
Hole.
before, They were talking about opening up the mouth of the
Sirloin, very
pond,
good jerk.
and the cranberry bog owners at the head of the pond were protesting against it because they were using the water out of the pond, the cranberry bog, so it was basically a freshwater pond
Yeah,
at the time.
interesting,
And then it started being developed, and people started complaining about the bugs, and that's when they opened it up.
interesting,
Right.
Things will change.
interesting.
Yeah, because there's a lot of articles of people catching trout,
Yeah,
mackerel,
yeah.
perch in ponds. This is funny. This was a mock menu that was in the 70s that the Enterprise published, making fun of some of the work Cooley was doing, I think.
Oh,
And the second one, oysters, Woods Hole, fresh shellfish from the Bay State, nourished by delectable sewage-fed algae. And that was because
That was the outfall.
Hui at the time was doing experiments, putting oysters in a raceway and putting sewage over them to see if they could clean up the water of sewage from Otis.
oh, no.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
I think it was in 75.
It was John Ryther.
Oh, John Ryder, okay.
Yeah. So I thought that was fitting. And these are some of the aerial photographs I went back and looked at. Sea farms. There was a sea farms operation out there that did a lot of aquaculture stuff.
Yep.
Experiments back in the 70s, I believe. 60s, I need to look at more information on that. And then there's Sousa's farm that he had before he became constable.
Oh, my goodness.
You can see the change. 1950 is that marsh there on the left, where his house was, and then you can see him actually dredging it out there in 1960.
60.
Oh, yeah.
And he created a little
Yeah.
channel there, and he would block off. You can see the picture at the bottom, him standing in front of it. Some of the signs are still out there,
Oh, isn't that something?
and he would block off the mouths of the channel, and so you could work both tides, keep the out. We had checkerboards, we could.
Yeah.
But I think it got too fresh up there and too hot for the quahogs. But this summer, I'm hoping to grow some oysters up there in floating bags.
Yeah.
They do well up there
Yeah.
on his old grant.
So, great.
These are, you can see some of his rafts when he was growing quahogs in Quahog Pond on the floating rafts, just like we do now, 1975. You can still see his pickup truck down there and everything. And he also had rafts out in the oyster pond. And then down at the bottom is where up by Truck River, where he had the raceways with the oysters. And then our impacts today. You can't see it. You can see our floating bags. And you see Paul Montague's claimed that there in Bourne's Pond. And over on the right, you can see it in this picture very well, but I was used to do some commercial fishing. You can see my bull rake lines where I was bull raking in that area. It's up by Hope Spring in Wisconsin. So I got more I want to do. I want to hopefully put this into some kind of article, maybe get it published like in Spread Solar or someplace.
Absolutely.
People to see and have access
Yeah.
to. And this is just a side note. We don't get into, but Falmouth, England, our sister town, and the oysters there. They still harvest by sail. It's only the way they allow harvest there.
Well, thank you enormously
Yeah.
for this.
Yes.
Give it to the selectmen, if you can do it in 10 feet.
Yeah, I'm gonna boil it down some.
Yeah.
Well,
That's kind of a broad scope.
they
but-
could watch the replay. We're very lucky FCTV is recording this.
Yeah.
So it could be seen that way too.
So if y'all have any input on, if you think about it, or if you would like to see this presented in a certain way, or like to guide me down a different avenue for research or something, I've got time for like the next month. And then it's gonna be on the back burner again for a
Right.
while.
Well, if you run across experiments that previous shellfish
Yeah.
ones tried that were successful that we aren't doing now, we should kind of revisit those maybe.
Yeah, because you'll read about George trying to plant oysters in certain areas and the drill's wiping them out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or storms, and losing a lot of stuff to storms.
Right.
And so it's a lot of knowledge there to learn stuff.
Yeah.
Are the drills still out there in each of these ponds?
Oh, yeah.
They are.
Oh, yeah. Natural, they're a native predator.
And
Some
so-
places more than others, of course. You know.
So do they eat things other than oysters?
Yeah, oh yeah, they'll eat other little periwinkles or other shellfish. They can.
Okay.
Yeah.
They also lay their eggs right in the oyster shells. So
Oh.
when the babies hatch, they know
is
exactly
it
where
to
to
go. Oh dear.
Yeah, they can really wipe out an area.
Ah,
They don't like the brackish water as much, so they're not brackish water.
good. Keep it brackish. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very
Thank you
much.
For this and for what you do the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And you did say that was sent around?
Yes, it was emailed to everybody. You should,
Email it to me, I don't think that's not.
The presentation? Yeah. Yeah, I've got all these documents. I could maybe put them on the MES website or something. Yeah.
no, definitely.
Matt, I think there's a little sticky that you can put on the front of the, so that we don't continue to have the.
Just turn it
the
off.
pa- Oh, okay.
Unless there's another present.
There we go.
Perfect.
Matt, can you turn that?
On the oyster thing and oyster
Yeah.
reefs, I was just in Florida, and south of Sarasota is something called Historic Spanish Point. And it's 30 acres of a peninsula sticking out into the bay there. And it is comprised entirely of oyster middens,
Oh,
up to 18 feet high, going out, several hundred feet, maybe even half a mile.
Huh.
It's 5,000 years old, and that it had been done. And then I was walking through, there wasn't a sign there, but I went over a bridge, and there was an oyster reef, which I took some pictures of, and the water was crystal clear all around it. So it's sort of like,
Where is this, Ron?
this is in south of Sarasota, a place called Historic Spanish Point. And it's very impressive that when these things actually get, it was a huge area that was just oysters.
wait, a midden is,
Oh, a midden is a pile of oyster shell.
It's a trash pile.
It's
Okay,
a
so
trash
after
pile.
they've
We had,
shelled,
the Indians used to.
okay, and they just get, it just
And they
piles
kept
up.
They
doing it, and they
just-
went right out in
yes.
the bay, building this whole land area.
Mm-hmm.
And as they dig down, it's all shells, but they also have areas where they've dug it out, and you see layers of ash, you know, and then different things over the time of the, as it built up, you know, as they were, you know, cooking and burning things,
neat.
and then they kept, you know, fish bones and all kinds of stuff. But it was mostly land created out of harvesting shells
Shells.
over thousands of years. So it's really, really,
A lot
you know,
closer is Lake Champlain, where you'll see very clear water, even though it's heavily polluted with phosphorus, but it's because of zebra mussels.
Zebra mussels, yeah,
And it's an invasive species.
yeah,
But the divers love the clarity.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the reefs were reestablished on the middens in that Spanish
no, they
part?
just are naturally occurring, but the middens are just the piles of shells, the waste of the,
Okay.
after eating them over all those thousands of years and piling it up. And then
So
they
the
actually-
reefs just naturally
Yeah,
reestablished?
right. As far as I know, it was natural.
Yeah.
But I was noticing as you were talking that there are oysters, quahogs, soft shells, and scallops. You have that about the landings of those. But can you give any indication of changes in the economy, the way in which, did that have an effect on which was cultivated and which was not
Yeah,
cultivated at a particular
there's a
time?
lot of layers, you know, in the history of storm events and war and demographic changes.
The things that caused all those,
Yeah,
all the
that's-
changes in emphasis and what kind of
Yeah,
shellfish
that would be
were.
interesting to look at, is like after a hurricane, how long did it take for the resource to recover?
Right.
We haven't gotten that, those kind of details yet.
And oysters have always been people's favorite. How did quahogs become important as a,
Well, they're like a commodity.
they are now.
They survived.
Yeah, they are now.
Yeah, and we had the contaminated relays, basically. You know, we went from the free fishery that
Uh-huh.
declined, went into the privatized, then we went into the basically the town subsidized
Right.
put and take fishery.
Right.
Yeah.
And have scallops always been here?
Yeah.
Tom?
Well, you know, some years are better than others. But
Till they
Yeah,
weren't.
yeah.
there used to be more, of course.
Used to
Yeah.
be more.
All right, next item up here.
Thank you,
Review.
Matt.
Yes, thank you again. This was
Maybe I'll come
Great.
back with more digestible.
a great piece of work. No, that's fascinating stuff.
All right, thanks, man.
Love the detail.
Okay, review and vote on accepting the Bagley Acapesca test well report, which was sent around to you more than once thanks to a communication lapse. I wasn't sure that it had been sent, so I sent it around too, and then Virginia
Said it again.
pointed out it had been sent, so you've all got it, 3 copies, and it's all the same thing.
Right.
The one that came from you
I'm just gonna pass
was the
this
one
down.
that had the
Okay.
edits
One
in
for
it.
you and
Right, but the
edits
final
on that.
one included all the edits.
And the
so-
final one that you sent around included all the edits, yeah.
Right.
So, no difference.
And the
in
only difference
content.
between the final one that included all the edits from yours was that the final one included the whole thing, all 66 pages. And your edits only included the 15 pages or so.
Yes.
Right.
Right. Are we okay?
Okay, fine.
So I was just going to really quickly bring you up to date on what has transpired with this report. Since we heard it, we had the presentation on February 5th. Jim Begley was here, and you know, we asked questions at that time, but we didn't vote the report because part of the conditions of getting the grant from the Cape Cod Collaborative was that there needed to be a meeting with Tom Cambereri, Cape Cod Commission, to review the information. Between February 5th and March 2nd, when we had the meeting with Tom Cambereri, a number of other reviewers also looked at it. Jerry worked very hard to have this draft report widely distributed. So we actually also got input from Dennis LeBlanc, from
Mike Powers.
Mike Powers, thank you, who's the Conservation Commission, and from Bob Schreiber from CDM, pro bono. So that there were quite a few hydrologists who looked at it, and and there was a discussion on a very technical level about various issues. What Jim did for the meeting with Tom Cambereri this Monday was summarize it under what he called themes, that these 6 bullets were basically the themes on which the comments were made. We knew that we had preliminary information, and so being careful not to extrapolate too far on the preliminary information. There was a question about whether the nitrate concentrations, which were low in the one round of samples that we have, might not be representative, and so that there is a potential for higher concentrations, and it may be simply because we had water table wells, and then also the well that was deep was at the very center of the peninsula, which is the height of the water table, and so there's nothing upstream for it to have much nitrogen. So what Jim did was basically put some clarifying language into the report on these various topics, just to acknowledge that, yes, it was preliminary, and there is a potential for higher concentrations if there are deeper wells. Bullets 1 and 2 really relate to the same thing.
Right.
The next bullet, the third one, the tidal effects, you remember that he made a point that there was a very slight grade to the direction of groundwater in addition to the fact that it was slow, and that he went out twice to survey it to make sure that he had gotten the direction of groundwater flow correct. But it is possible, just because there was no direct measurement at the same time of where the tide was, that there could be some tidal influence which would tend to raise or lower the water table. So in follow-up work, this will be one of the items that will be checked out as to whether there is any tidal effect. The wells that were closest to the coast were actually 200 or somewhat more than 200 feet away from the coast, so they weren't, right next to the coast, but still, conceptually, it's possible that there was a tidal effect. So that's now acknowledged. The conductivity discussion was, I would consider, highly technical, and what the report now does is give a range, and it's based on the existing data. Some commenter thought that the conductivity that he listed there was low, so now there's a low to a somewhat higher range. It's not a specific, it's not one number.
I gather 300 feet per day is 300 feet per year.
This is conductivity.
This is conductivity.
Conductivity.
Right,
It translates to 50-some feet per year.
right,
Oh, okay.
right.
300 feet per day?
Yeah, say that again.
It's
Technical
when
stuff.
that's right, you get into,
Okay.
you have to be a hydrologist, and
Okay.
and we're laymen. But all of the people involved in the discussion were very knowledgeable, and I think there was a very good exchange of information.
Just for
Yes.
the hell of it, what are they measuring?
What they're really interested in is how many feet per day the groundwater actually moves through the little pores, and groundwater moving quickly.
So it's not
Velocity.
electronic conductivity,
No.
which I normally would think.
It's the ability of the molecules of water
To move through the
pass-
soil.
To move through
Okay.
the soil pores.
Okay.
In sort of dodging in and around them.
Without back pressure.
With that's right, just
the-
natural
you
draw
just
of
pour it
gravity.
through, yeah,
Yes.
just pour it through, okay.
Denitrification, Jim postulated that if you had very slow movement and not high elevated levels of nitrate, it's possible that the nitrate actually in the groundwater could be doing some denitrification. And that's where you get the nitrate attenuation concept. Again, until we have more samples and we check out the possibility of tidal effect, that the flow is in fact the rate that he observed. Can't really say for certain whether there is denitrification going on, but it's something to keep on the radar screen as a possibility. And then the last was he had a cross section which looked like this, which had been requested by Tom Cambereri early on in the draft portion. And so he took a CDM figure and then added information to it. And then there ensued a great discussion on, on a totally technical level as to the circulation of the salt water beneath the fresh water, which of course was not the point of this study at all. So ultimately, the saline groundwater is now just labeled saline groundwater, and that this figure is now acceptable to everybody in depicting the information that was relevant to the study, but not getting into anything that wasn't relevant to the study. So what I've just done is just outline for you the changes that were made, and the best word is clarification, from the time that you heard the presentation on February 5th to where we are now. And then we're open to any other
I think one
comments
of
or
the things
additions.
Mike Powers, he was an independent reviewer, and I think
Yes.
I think everybody agreed that given the level of effort, this was an outstanding report by Jim Begley. The feet he drilled, his explanation. So I
Yes.
think it was a good compliment, and you could say CDM Smith was a compendium consultant, but these were professional hydrologists, and I knew they were interested in the data. And Mike is right here in town, and he's got some of his own expertise.
Right. Yes, I think you've made a very good point, because Mike said, you've got a lot of bang for the buck in this particular report, and it's information that has never been available, and for the first time, we do have some.
Right.
So that's...
Yeah, this is the astonishing thing that I mentioned at the Cape Cod Commission the other day, that the town was proposed to build a $400 million sewering project for those peninsulas without one single data being gathered from this sort of study. And how lucky we were not to have done that.
Well, you have to qualify that. Everything was based on quantity of nitrogen removed. It was mathematical calculations in the exact concentrations, in the need to spend a lot of money investigating the groundwater was not needed. It appears now, with Dennis LeBank's study, as we get into the need to characterize groundwater, but you can't mix apples. We were looking at amount of nitrogen needing to be removed. Now we're looking at, are there better places to remove it?
Right, but we could have, if we had followed that plan, we could have sewered those peninsulas and still
We would
found
have.
a whole lot of nitrogen coming through.
No way. We never would have sued the whole thing.
Well, for other reasons than...
Because of cost.
Well, exactly, but that's not a good defense for the fact that they proposed we do
No,
that.
you're misrepresenting the consultant, in my opinion.
I think it's refreshing that we have all of the consultants agreeing that
Yes.
this is valuable information, that it gives us a better picture for Acapesca Peninsula, obviously, but that it is complementary to the work that USGS has been doing on Seacoast shores. And they also found this rather unusual northwest vector for the groundwater. So that everybody's getting a better understanding of all of these peninsulas, which is key to making any sort of policy decisions. So there will be a follow-up to this work.
was gonna say,
There needs to be a follow-up to this work.
Ask that question.
That's your
Now,
question.
what's the next step?
Right.
Now that we know this, and now that we know there's some information missing,
Right, we're
where
glad
do we
you
go
asked
from
that
there?
question.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, yes, there may be some other questions. I'll come back to
Yeah,
that.
just a few things.
Yes.
Well, actually, just basically a couple things here. Well, one is that, the first is that I remember when we first talked about this, that the well they were going to put down had several ports going down that they would be able to take samples from, as I recall, but apparently they only got water from the bottom, right? From the lowest point.
That's not quite a correct statement, but you
Okay.
are correct that the ports didn't work out. They were intending to use a particular kind of equipment, and they were not able to deploy that particular equipment. So what they ended up doing is, it's an alternate way of doing it, and it's called a cluster of wells. So at their first drill site, site 1, they did 1, 2, 3, 4. So there were 4 separate screens, 4 separate wells sitting together in a cluster, you know, like about that area. So they were able to get 4 samples of groundwater at 4 levels. So it wasn't just the deep one.
Okay, so and this very low concentration they got, is sort of the average of all those?
No, each one of those, he gave you some of them did not have very much nitrate in them at all. I believe there is a table that lists, and I'm not sure I
Page.
brought that. It's in the appendices, and I didn't bring that.
I have a
But
copy
there
of the
is a
appendices
table
here.
that shows what exactly was measured at each well. And at well 1 has an A, B, C, D. A is the lowest, is the deepest, B is next, C, and D is right at the water table. So you can look and see exactly what was in each one of those wells.
Okay, because they came up with the figure of that 140 kilograms of nitrogen passing through this 50-foot deep by 5,000-foot long transect underground. And that's, to me, that was amazingly low compared to everything else that we've seen. It's
Agreed.
like, which could mean that the estuaries are much more sensitive than we think they are, or it's partial data, or we don't know.
Right.
But how to get that done so that we do have a good sense, because it's like, you know, shooting in the dark almost, you know, because
Right.
if one understanding is that the septic nitrogen ends up not going very deep, it stays pretty high, and maybe it moves in lumps, kind of, in you know, in
Slugs.
so to speak. So it's going to be difficult to get a sense, but they did put this figure in the report, which I think is premature and a little bit misleading, because it means that the nitrogen going into Great Pond might be 700 kilograms a year from septic versus the 14,000
Right.
estimated. So it's a huge difference, and I think that they do qualify it. But to put this number in here is kind of like, well, even if they're off by 100%, you know, it's still minuscule compared to what our whole planning has been around. And that's why I was thinking about the sensitivity of the estuaries. And then one other point is that, and so I mean, it's have that in there is a little bit, you know, it's interesting. It's also, as I say, they do say that it's premature, early.
Yeah.
But maybe
And-
it's too early to include it, is the point.
Well, it is in there.
Yeah.
They do recognize that there's also 1 round of sampling.
Right,
And so
right.
part of the follow-up is going to be that there be 4 quarterly sampling. And they do need to have wells that are at deeper levels so they can determine whether in fact there is more nitrate at depth, which would then raise the total
Right, we
amount
know
of nitrate.
exactly if we can.
Yes, it would,
Yeah.
you'd end up with a different conclusion.
Right, but and the other point is that when they gave the reasons for why it was low, they thought they gave 4. But they didn't, and I think this could be a relatively simple exercise, they didn't give the possibility of dilution, because now we're dealing with a very thick freshwater lens. And maybe if we look at the volume of water in that lens and get an idea, because it's shaped like, you know, like you showed in the drawing.
Yeah.
You know, it's shaped in
Right,
a...
it's a-
Right.
It's a lens.
It's a lens, exactly.
It's exactly
But
what
if we
it
looked
is.
at that volume of water, and we know how much water is used from the water bills, we could see how much water, except for irrigation, maybe some evaporation and things, we could estimate how much water is coming in at what estimated nitrogen loading, and then calculate what it might be, you know, on average. And it might be closer to what they have measured on average. Now, what that means, and then at the rate it's flowing in, it's quite slow, but but I think more could be done with what they know already, based on this depth. That could be in this report that would give us an idea that theoretically, if so much septic nitrogen is coming in, and maybe an estimate of fertilizer nitrogen or whatever we can do, and then figure out just what the concentration might be. I think it would be almost a better, you know, than this figure they have in here, because we could use what we know, especially with the hydrology, which is what this was about, and plus the nitrogen. So I think that it would be I don't know what the concentration of water is in the soil, like for every liter of soil, or how much of that, what percent of that in the groundwater is sand, and what percent is actually water. And then once you know that, because we only know the depth, we don't know it's not pure water, right? I mean,
No.
there's a lot of sand in there.
Yes.
So we'd have to, yeah, so we'd have to figure it out, but the fact that it's 50 feet deep is
Thick.
quite a thick.
Thick,
Yeah,
not
well,
deep.
thick is deep, well, thick, okay, thick lens.
Because there's,
Yeah, it's at that point.
Dry water,
it gets-
dry land above it.
It gets thinner as it moves outward, and thicker maybe as it moves inward, we don't know. But I think from that, we could, get an idea of what's going in, and then correlate it to some of these. And it isn't like, it's not a difficult exercise to do that. Right?
I think it's clearly outside the scope, but we should think about it for the next meeting.
I was
yeah,
gonna say,
yeah. And the word is exercise, because you're going to have a bunch of assumptions there. You didn't mention atmospheric deposition.
Yeah, well, atmospheric pressure.
And then for the MEP report, with all runoff, so you got to look at impervious surfaces, because there's another factor for nitrate that comes from that. That's for this, the runoff. So you end up having to add all of those little pieces,
Right.
some of which don't go through septic systems, but what does go through the septic system then has a certain amount of treatment.
Right, well, what goes in the groundwater, whatever it
Yes.
is, we can,
All I'm saying is
Yeah.
that there will have to be a bunch of assumptions, and I would say the common theme from all the hydrologists was, we need a better picture of the hydrology before you start making any additional presumptions or projections.
which brings us to your
I
point.
agree with that. That's
Yeah,
why I
you agree.
I-
Oh, good.
No, that's why
Yeah, I think
this
it's a good point.
140
Yeah.
thing is sort of like, my goodness, I mean, where are we? What are we
Right.
doing all this for?
That's right.
Because it's the same in, we're sewering Mira Vista. And if we only have 140 kilograms coming out
Right.
of that side of the peninsula, why are we sewering that side of the
I
peninsula?
don't think you can make that assumption,
Yeah. Well,
even from that.
you can't, because we don't have the data.
But the thing is, it's written in the report.
It's from
there
3 wells.
As a speculation, it says it's preliminary.
It's 3 wells.
I
And
know.
we can calculate nitrogen coming from
Right.
1,600 homes very precisely.
Right.
We don't, and it has to go from one point to the other. And that's the point, that we shouldn't speculate with this. The data is what we have.
I didn't speculate. The consultant speculated.
Qualified.
Okay, and you've pointed out perhaps
But
that he reached
we're
too
allowed
far.
to speculate, we're also allowed to say we don't have enough data,
Yeah, that's true.
and let's move
But
move
it's-
toward getting
but-
more.
Yeah, I know,
Right.
we should get more, but I'm just saying that even at this point, there could be more,
Yeah.
just a sense of what we, theoretically, what we might expect in terms of the volume of the lens. That's all. It's not, and that's a simple exercise, but it would be the next step, but I think that.
I think we already have that calculation from the MEP reports. I mean, in a sense, they've laid it out.
If they were using 50 feet as the depth,
So as we get
A
more data,
thickness.
then we'll get a better picture of how those two agree with each
And
other.
we also don't know that, and I do the same thing that you were thinking. We don't know that the septic tank, F1, doesn't take a dive. I thought it was pretty, it comes down and goes up. But what we're seeing is because of groundwater and other things, what comes from the F1 can take a steep dive. And those are all things we all can speculate on, and, it's obvious from the stuff coming up north that it comes down and then takes a deep dive. So there's a lot of things we could spend money on.
Yeah. I think Wynn had another.
Yes.
Well, you've answered you've talked about a lot of the things I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
But do we have any focused information available to us now, or do we need to get it, about what actually comes out of a septic, where a septic plume goes? Can we find a septic plume and look in a septic plume in several places, test what is coming out of the septic system, what is going into it, test what's in the plume, and find out how wide the plume is? Is there any way of doing it in plumes and out of plumes and seeing whether there's a difference? Do we have that kind of information available?
I have 2 answers to you. The first is, to my knowledge, we don't have any information of that sort that's here in Falmouth.
Yeah.
It may have been done at Waterloo in Canada and so on.
Sure.
It is something that people have, I've heard say, I'd really like to do that. I've heard Dennis LeBlanc from the USGS say it. I've heard Ken Foreman from Woods Hole say, if we could find the money, I'd really like to do that. In my mind, we may get some of that kind of information from the West Falmouth grant, because we'll be doing the innovative alternative systems. We're gonna know what goes in, we're gonna have an upstream well, we're gonna have more than
Okay,
one.
so we're gonna
more-
be doing that.
And we're hoping to have 20 different homes, so 20 different data sets, wow.
At least for that hydrology
For
at
that-
that particular location, you would
Yes,
have it.
right.
I also heard McGrath say at that meeting the other day that he was finding lots more nitrogen in the septic systems when he was measuring them,
Yes.
and that maybe we ought to measure septic systems now and then to find out
George
what actually was
Highfelder's
coming
got
out.
a huge data set on
There we
this.
go.
Yeah,
And
That would
the
be
test
another
center has a large.
yeah, it does, it has a lot of that, yeah.
Which
And
center? What-
The county test center.
Oh, yeah, right.
Of the ones that they have actually
Right.
put in IA
That they
systems.
have. But where it goes, do they have that information after?
What
It's what
happens-
goes out,
yeah,
they know.
The
but they
little
don't-
plumelet
Yeah.
Yeah.
from each
Right,
septic
yeah.
system. But
But-
George doesn't have that.
But on the
George-
West Falmouth project, how many households have signed up? Does anybody know?
To my knowledge, they had a list of 40
Uh-huh.
that they were working from. I don't know where they are in the stage of having contacted the 40 and who's signed up. I don't have any recent information. The grant presumed that there would be 20.
Right.
The funding is for 20.
Right.
$10,000 each.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they had the first meeting very recently with the West Falmouth Village Association.
Wonderful.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
so, because the schedule's pretty tight
Yeah.
on that grant, because it's only 20 months, and it's supposed to, according to the schedule, they should have all been signed up by the end of last month, according to the schedule
I
in
thought the
the
schedule we
proposal.
talked about,
Yeah, that would be
we weren't
optimistic.
behind schedule. I wish she was here, but she was trapped, because I thought the same thing. She thought we were
Well, it's
doing
on the,
okay.
it's on
Well,
the timeline in the
BB,
schedule.
the Buzzards Bay Coalition was in charge of
Doing
lining up so it's in there.
Okay,
Court.
well,
Yeah.
Well, actually, I know they're doing their part, because their attorney was down in the health department here.
Right.
Oh, good.
About a week ago, going through the files, trying to identify properties and what they had. and that kind
That's
of-
right.
because, the construction period they have planned for the high season.
John,
Well, that
let me
won't work.
let me ask John a question
Proposal
about
also.
the data. The data that
We're
George
getting
has,
way
does he
off.
have
Yeah,
data
we are.
Can we get
before
a, can
they
we get a
put
vote
in
here?
an IA
and move
system,
on?
or does he have data merely on what the IA system does?
All right, let's get back to order here. We have we've reviewed, I think, the Bagley-Akapesket test well report sufficiently to raise the question of, do we want to vote on accepting it? Motion to that effect?
I move that we accept the,
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Motion by Win, John, second, to accept the report.
I just want that, there's one minor thing I need. It's one word that I want Begley to come back and defend or not, and that's whether he's recommending or implying injection wells are the only ways to get an organic substrate. I think it's a good recommendation, but that report wasn't intended to specify the type of the next step PRBs. I feel firmly that it's up to the author. As you said, he qualified everything else. He hasn't qualified that. I had no one object to my saying, I don't think we can make that assumption. It's one word, and that's the only thing and I'm waiting for Jim Begley to come back. He's the author.
Okay.
Right. Right.
All right.
So
He did change the language quite a bit from what
Yes,
he
he
started
did.
out with as far as PRBs.
he has. And this, he waited until Tom Cambereri had
Yes,
sent his
okay.
final document, and then he finalized it.
Right.
And this came after that. So there are a couple of outstanding questions, whether he would modify it with this word injection, which happens to appear on page 2. And you would like,
Well, I'm just concerned that by having this 140 kilogram
Right.
figure in there, that the town has made a huge commitment to
Right.
building an extension to the sewer system, and if this figure fits the area, it's, as opposed to just saying that these are early results and not speculate on what it means,
Well, you have suggested language. I think it's easier for him to take in a word, take one out. If you had, I thought it was clear that he said you know, this report is what you have, it's preliminary, don't take any of it to the
He feels he's
bank.
qualified it.
Okay, if somebody
Right.
has a specific amendment, let's hear it.
Yeah.
Anybody want to offer any specific,
I
you- do you-
I would just suggest that that sentence
What
be-
specific word, what specific sentence are you thinking about? No, okay.
I-
you want to take a sentence out? Figure out what you want to do, we'll make a
Okay,
motion out of it.
well, yeah, what I'd like to suggest is that, you know, what it says on, in the
Page-
middle of page 10,
Middle
Uh,
page 10.
the paragraph in the middle of page 10,
Which, give me a number for the paragraph.
there's no number, there aren't
I
numbers,
mean,
it's
just-
the middle paragraph. Middle paragraph, page 10.
Which-
I only
Several
took it
lines
out,
of
I don't
evidence
have it, I didn't
exist?
bring the whole thing.
What?
Right.
Is that several lines of evidence exist on page 10?
It starts with the word calculating.
Oh,
Oh,
it's on
Right?
Page
yeah,
10?
calculating.
Right. All right, so that's what I'm looking
Mine,
for.
well, the version I had.
Calculating upon page 9, I have it.
It's at page 9.
Page 9,
Okay,
I
it's
did.
the last paragraph in section 5.2
Right.
on page 9.
Okay.
So, okay, let's see, it says the flux is estimated concerning the specific discharge, also known as this is in the middle. I would just say that, he's talking about the concentration he measured, that we know, okay, we'll go with that, 1.3 milligrams per liter, that's what he's
Right.
quoting. After that, the flux was, then he starts calculating,
Using Darcy's law.
using Darcy's law and everything, and he goes on to calculate for the next two sentences that comes to this 140 kilogram figure, right? And so that's,
Do you want to take that out?
I'm saying, I would suggest taking out those two sentences and then just going on, following the 1.3 milligram finding, then following saying data from this study are limited to one.
But read that whole sentence. Data from this study are limited to one round of groundwater sampling
Oh,
from
that's
3
good.
sampling locations
Yeah.
and are unlikely to be fully representative of nitrate concentrations in mass flux. So that's how he made it clear. I used the information I had, I did a calculation, Darcy's law is Darcy's law. But I'm saying here, unlikely to be fully
Right,
representative.
but what is the basis of unlikely? It should be like,
Because it's 3 samples, or whatever this, I mean, you could
But
say
they may be
another
right.
sentence, do
Well,
not use this to
To be
extrapolate.
proved. To be proved.
to be proved. Right, so all I'm saying is that he's gone the next step to calculate.
I need a
Something.
motion, I need a motion.
I'm motioning to delete those two sentences.
Okay,
Starting with the
move
flux.
to delete the 2 sentences, is there a second?
From the flux to the end of this?
It's starting, yeah, the flux was estimated concerning specific discharge, also known as the Darcy velocity of groundwater, and a representative cross-section area of the aquifer, 5,000 feet by 50 feet deep. The estimated mass flux through this cross-section area is approximately 140 kilograms. The estimated mass flux through that, and then he says, well, you know, maybe it's not correct, but,
Unlikely to be fully representative.
right, exactly, but it could be. This is the issue, is it puts us in a position of making commitments moving forward when we may have a small problem that has a big impact on the estuaries.
It makes no such commitment. If anybody goes ahead with a $25,000 study, one, I won't be sitting here, and two, they should have their head examined.
All I'm saying is that it says it here.
Well, we got a motion, I'm still waiting for a second.
Going.
Okay, going.
I think he's adequately qualified it. I'm not going to second him.
No second, then we'll-
All right,
I
there we
think
go.
he's, yeah.
Any other motions?
So we get back to the main motion.
If not, we'll go back to the main motion, which is to accept the report.
As presented.
Any-
With that
With-
one qualification you
With
have?
one
well,
qualification.
Well, you want to take a word out, or what do you
Yeah.
want?
I wanted, to see why he led up to that one word. If he,
Well,
I think you want a response from him.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
and
I want a
he's
response.
out of town.
so we're going to accept the report, but you want
subject
to,
to his response.
you want to,
Okay.
well,
Yeah.
we're
But
accepting
we
it or
asked
we're
him
not.
about this, other point too? If we're
Sure.
gonna ask them
Okay,
about
fine,
that?
fine,
Sure.
okay.
Yes,
We-
that's
Okay,
where-
we've raised two issues, we want responses to those two issues. And
Yes.
Subject to receiving a response, we adopt this, is that
Yeah,
fair?
yeah.
Okay.
And it would be good if, could you clarify exactly what you want him to answer? Was it
I'm sure, he will, but not right now.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, okay, motion made and seconded, discussion has been robust. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, great.
I abstain.
Okay.
The great abstainer.
I have to, the
Understood.
thing is that this is, I
Understood.
don't want to present something that's going to make everyone get real nervous about what we're doing.
Gotcha. Report on One Cape Conference. Several of us were there. Wynn was there. Virginia was there.
Eric,
I-
before we proceed,
there, yeah.
do we want to fill in the committee on what steps Jim Begley's taking next?
All right, next
I think that'll be a report of members and staff, because we have,
Okay.
the
Under
selectmen
that.
talked about it,
Yep.
and we want to fill in the blanks at that point, I think. One Cape Conference. Anyone who was there want to just give us a 2-minute précis of what happened?
I actually cut out
Oh, fine.
regional water quality plan moving forward.
Yes.
It was really well attended. There were nearly 200 people on Wednesday night, and there were 350 people on Thursday in all the breakout sessions. Yeah, and so basically, the next step in this 208 process was taken, and that is that all the selectmen, all the boards on the Cape were put on notice that there needs to be a vote that they will become the responsible
A designated
agency.
agency under 208.
Okay, designated agency, and it's called Water Management Authority, right?
Yes.
WMA.
Yes.
Oh.
It's waste management.
Waste.
Waste
okay.
management.
In
Right,
which
right.
it's not solid waste, it's just terminology.
Right.
in
This
that.
will come as no surprise to any of them, since for the last 24 years, the DEP has been pointing out that they're the responsible parties.
responsible.
So now they will have to acknowledge that they are responsible parties, and to the extent there's joint waterways, they're going to have to
Collaborate.
talk to the neighbors and figure out
Yeah.
what to do
So
together.
we now stand with the responsible party.
Understood.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
We,
that's
we, the town, but I mean, it's always been the town.
That's
Right.
There were a lot of little things in there. I noticed that it would be interesting to talk about. There's one thing that the most I got out of it was when Killian spoke, both the first day and the second
Conservation Law
day.
Foundation.
It was very, very interesting what he had to say.
yes.
And there were a number of points in it where I would like to get Killian here actually talking to me about the points that he made. But it seemed to me the most important single thing he said was that he thought we were making great progress. He thought that the Conservation Law Foundation did not want to go further with this if we did what we said we wanted to do. But he said, we're going to reserve the right to say that you do not do what you have done, and if you don't do it, we're going to come back to you and try to see if we can't hang you up by your ears. That was what he seemed to be saying to me. Is that what you heard?
That is what he said, and it relates almost not at all to what happened to his case
No.
when it went to court. And it relates almost not at all to his and his organization's authority to say any such thing. I appreciate that he was invited to be there, and I think it was probably good politics to have him be there. But I wouldn't stay up nighttime worrying about what they're going to do to us anymore.
I was staying up nights wondering whether I needed to worry about it. I'm glad to hear you say that, but I don't
I
know.
think the settlement agreement says they can't do anything for 5 years. I think what he responded to was, he didn't know if the individual communities, acting by themselves and where there's a joint watershed, could move ahead without some outside prodding. Because someone asked him that question.
Yes,
And he
yes,
said,
yes.
I don't think it's possible, but, I'm going to wait and see.
Yes,
which
that
is
was,
right.
yes, that was an interesting point. I think there were 2 points, though. That was one, that he doesn't think the individual communities can go forward alone
Without prodding.
in the joint watersheds without prodding.
Even on their own, I think.
Excuse me?
Even, let's say, we have several watersheds that we're not joint on.
Right, okay.
They may want us to start prodding some of the other watersheds we haven't even done work on.
but
And
what
there's
I-
some towns that haven't done anything.
What I think he was saying is, though, that if we don't make progress in that direction by September, he was going to start screaming.
If you read the letter that was sent as a result of the settlement agreement,
Right.
it basically says, go do what you were going to do anyway. There was nothing in there that we weren't already planning to do.
Falmouth.
Falmouth.
But what about the others?
Or the Cape, the 208.
Okay.
There's a couple of dates in it, but those were dates
Okay.
that the commission had already committed to. There was nothing,
Yeah.
The dates are, the plan, the towns have to accept being designated agencies by June.
June 15th.
The governor, between June 15th and
Right.
September, has to appoint the towns. The town selectmen before June, or town meeting, may, I don't know what authority they have to accept this designation. The report will be submitted, EPA will accept the report, and if things that much, that's all that has to be done by September. If that's not done, the settlement agreement might have to be extended, or
Okay,
who knows, what
yeah,
the,
yeah.
nothing. It says nothing about what we have to do, when we have to do it, and there's a lot of things in between.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I wasn't there, so I can't talk about what was said, but I just read a little interesting thing here in this article. And here in Falmouth, we're between the betterment and the tax base, we're paying 100% of the cost for the
Yes.
present
Yes, we
sewer
are.
expansion. And here they're saying their preliminary recommended funding breakdown is 25% by the state and 25% by
They
the
were
federal
questioned
government.
about that.
Yes.
Yes.
that's
yes,
what we
yes.
call wishful thinking.
No, I know, but I mean, it's like,
That's what they said. It's a plan.
someone's,
It's a big wish.
I know it's a wish,
We-
but
it-
it's,
it-
it's,
it's-
What percentage
it had no
of the
basis in
cost of
fact.
doing the whole thing is covered by the SRF no interest loan? Because that is what they're talking about. They're talking about the state's proportion of it is going to be in part.
Actually,
no
they
interest
weren't. They
loan.
were talking about helping with the actual capital cost.
A grant.
The only, yes, a grant.
Well, yes, but I think they were.
The SRF is the only help that we get now. Now,
Yeah.
for us, it's worth $1 million a year.
How much? What is the percentage of the total cost of the thing? How much is that?
Well,
But if we were paying interest at the rate the town would be paying interest, it would cost us a lot more per year than not paying.
That's right. And I think
But
they,
that's the only-
I've understood from the beginning, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I've understood from the beginning that whoever it was, CLEC and whoever were talking about this was counting things like that, the SRF funding,
SRF.
as part of the state's contribution, or the federal contribution, or whatever.
Even they didn't have the nerve to present it that way.
no.
No, they will count it, the state will count it that way, but they won't count it as a grant.
The one-
No,
one thing
of course not.
I mean, they won't give.
The one thing they did present as a possibility, because it's in the revision that the Senate and the legislature passed a little while ago, is there is a possibility of some principal,
Forgiveness, which would be nice.
That's
a
right.
possibility.
Yes, which would be very nice.
Which is,
Yeah.
That's a grant.
it would be a grant if anybody ever got it. But they don't have to give it, and they don't have to give it to us.
Right.
So it's a very unlikely thing to count on.
Tenuous.
Yeah.
But,
The other-
that was their idea of what would be somehow the state's contribution.
The other thing
well,
they
they've
don't,
been talking about this, they keep trying to sweeten the pill, so
Yeah.
to speak, and they've been talking about this for
decades.
years, yeah.
The best we're going to see is the 0% loan.
The other thing
For
that's
the foreseeable
interesting,
future.
that no one's done it before, and I did download the report a few days, and they don't say much. Cape Cod Commission had an economist. He studied Pleasant Bay. He went so far as to say and project that because of poor water quality, nitrogen, property values had decreased by millions.
Yes.
Quite a few millions.
Yes.
He didn't explain how he got there.
I want to
It's
talk
the
with him
first-
about that, yeah.
It's the first time I've ever seen any agency go out and equate home value to water quality.
I saw that. I don't know what universe they're living in, but
I will send it to you. It doesn't say
I
much
understand.
more than I said.
in this
He works for
town,
the Cape
that
Cod
has not occurred.
Well, we
He was
don't know
hired
for
to answer that
sure.
question.
He
Or
was
is it
hired,
consult-
he was
Property values
hired
have
as
not
an
declined.
economist to make
I
that
don't- I
evaluation.
Property values have not gone up as much since That's the question. You see,
Right.
I also want to know how he did it, you know?
That was an interesting tidbit to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
It's a great idea.
It's something that's used all over the place.
Okay.
I want to talk to them about how he did
Report,
that.
report on the Board of Selectmen action on the Boone's Pond Inlet opening.
Okay.
All right, they voted the notice of project change, they voted to submit it to MEPA, which is the green light that GHD needed to begin to do its work, and GHD is already trying to schedule a meeting. So that's the next nitty-gritty step in the Bourne's Pond project. More to come.
And again, that's just to do more detailed environmental studies.
Right,
It's not to say it's good or bad.
right.
Ron?
Oh, no, I don't have anything.
Disagree.
I just watched the meeting, and they did have the, you know, they wanted to make sure, at least the chair of the Board of Selectmen wanted to make sure that the whole flooding issue was addressed. And apparently Nate or John would have said, yeah, it's not an issue. But I still can't quite follow what he said.
Well, yeah, Woods Hole was going to flood out long before that bridge washed away.
No, I'm not worried, I'm not worried about the bridge.
Particularly
It's just
Fay
that
Road.
They pour a lot, yeah, closer to
Your
the
end.
water, closer to the waterfront.
You'll be gone.
Right.
You'll be gone, yes?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. No. But anyway, because it was just that if more water is going in, because then we get more coming out, then it's sort of, you know, that's a question that I have. It's just, where's it going?
What goes in comes out.
Where's it going when it goes in?
I'm getting a little anxious with all the snow.
Report of members and staff. At this point, we should reference two other votes the selectmen took. One is to authorize the town manager to sign the contract for SEIT, or the
already signed it.
science
It's already
wares for the
signed.
rest of the year. And the other was $75,000 for us to request from the collaborative for two purposes. One being additional groundwater studies in Acapescat, and the other being
Shellfish
third-year shellfish monitoring. So they did
What we
not
talked
put-
about before.
They did not put a dollar figure on each one because those two figures may change from what we thought earlier. We originally thought 50 for the 2015 shellfish review and 25 for the groundwater monitoring piece. We may find that it's possible to reverse those two, and it might be appropriate to, but we don't know that yet.
Right. And another thing that was mentioned, or the question that was asked, was that the collaborative is more or less agreed, or this is in their mindset, that
Yes.
these funds will most likely be available.
Yes.
They're squirreled away from us. It's up to us to lose the money.
We will try very hard not to.
Have we leaped through all the hoops we need to get it?
Any other reports of members and staff? Okay.
Which are we voting on? Because I can't vote on the last one.
I moved the minutes of February 5th.
Virginia, did we want to update them on what Jim was going to do with those wells and
For the next step?
As a result of the comments and the level of effort at 25,000, they concluded that there were some data gaps that were needed to be filled, tidal exchange, for instance, being one of them, deeper wells, check on nitrated depth, another, and that there needed to be further exploration of the hydrology north of this site, so that, because we know from the regional model what the groundwater hydrology is coming towards 28.
This is the Begley report.
This is the Begley report. And then we have this glimpse, was the word that Michael Powers used. We have this glimpse 3,600 feet south of 28. So we need to fill in. So a scope of work is being drafted now. You will all eventually see it when it's ready. That would take care of the data gaps and would extend, you might say, open out the hydrology so we have a better idea of the northern end of the Acapescat Peninsula. And then there'll be a price put on that, and that ties into what Eric, thank you, just said about the 75,000 for the collaborative.
The minutes?
I move the minutes of
Okay,
February 5th.
They've
I'll
been
second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This, February 5th?
This is
5th
February
minutes.
5th. This is the minutes that Eric and I and Steve and John
Yes.
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 were,
Who made the motion?
I did.
Virginia made the motion,
I second
John
it.
seconded. Discussion?
Do we have a?
Oh, three of you can't vote on it.
No, I know we can't vote on it, but do you have enough people here to vote on it then, or is? that's
Oh,
it?
yeah, you're allowed to do that.
Okay.
The quorum, you need a quorum to start the meeting, but beyond that, you could abstain or just not be voting. So
No, no,
it's-
I mean, to vote on these, is 3 votes enough to?
Yes.
to do a
Yes,
quorum?
that's what I'm
Sorry.
saying.
Okay.
Yeah,
Especially since there were only 4 people at the meeting.
at the meeting.
Right,
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? The ayes
Abstain.
have it.
Abstain.
Fair
Right.
enough.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Matt,
So moved.
second. Can I give a second, please? Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
All right.
Good.